Hello everyone. I'm just going to invite Crystal. Hello.
Hello.
Welcome everyone to our second week of the Empowered Hearts podcast live.
Yeah,
How are you?
I'm so good. I'm so excited today. I have this really big things are landing. It's like manifestations are happening. That's how I feel today.
Really?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
I woke up and sprung out of bed and I was like, it's a good day.
Aww.
Yeah. How are you?
Good. I'm tired. I definitely feel tired, but other than tired, I'm good. I feel centered and balanced and grounded. So I'm good.
Good.
So today we have some new topics that we wanted to share. We want to talk about what it actually means to be vulnerable, admitting to yourself where you are and how hard that can be, what it means to actually trust yourself, how to handle when you're feeling like you're going backwards but you're actually growing, and did I miss anything?
And how to cope with worry or overthinking.
Right, and how to cope. Well, that is your specialty. I can be your patient through this. How to cope with worry and overthinking.
Yeah.
That's Crystal's specialty.
That's my niche.
That's your niche. I am like the niche client, and you are the niche teacher.
Yeah. Welcome to the class. Okay, let's start with the first one, because this week we moved through a lot and it was not fun. It never is.
No.
I find it can be super easy to resist the hard work, but it's always worth it. So this week we learned what being vulnerable really means. So why don't you share with us, Morgan, what you learned?
So Crystal and I are part of a mastermind, and we are in a mastermind with other leaders who we all have our own businesses, and some of the leaders, I think probably most of the leaders are further ahead in their businesses than we are. And I really, now on the other side of it, it's a really beautiful thing to be around different people on different journeys at different levels of their journeys, because it shows you what you are capable of. It shows you what can be a possibility, because these other women are literally paving the path for you, showing you what they've done, how it's worked, what hasn't worked, and you're able to build confidence through somebody else's experience, right?
Yeah.
But prior to that, so because Crystal and I maybe are, like, for sure, me, are definitely much more in the beginning stages of owning their own business and showing their face and showing who I am.
Yeah.
I felt very like I thought I knew what I was doing, and then we had more women in the space, and it just mirrored to me, like it was just like, boop, you actually are in a different place than you thought you were. And it was really confronting.
Yeah.
I was like, holy shit, I actually don't show up the way I want to show up. I am scared. I'm really scared. I'm scared to show myself. I'm scared to really open my heart to my audience. I just feel scared, and I didn't want to bring it into our space, because it was it was too confronting for me, and I wasn't ready to admit these feelings to myself. So I think what it really means to be vulnerable is feeling the feelings that you're actually feeling and letting somebody hold you while that's happening, right? Because it's easy to be vulnerable. I mean, personally for me, it's easy to be vulnerable behind closed doors, move through it, and then come and share. But to be vulnerable and be witnessed through that is something that I thought I was like, oh yeah, I can be vulnerable. I know what I'm doing. And I actually couldn't.
Totally. Yeah.
What about you? What was your experience with the mastermind and vulnerability?
Well, if I'm being completely honest, I am awful at being vulnerable. I have carried this mentality for most of my life that I can move through this. I don't need support. I got this, that kind of thing. And for me, it's always been like my natural thing to just like retreat, go into my bubble, move through whatever it is, and then like come out of hibernation. And I was also very confronted in the space. And it made me admit a piece of myself that I wanted to hide. And to me, that's what vulnerability is. Like you said, having someone hold space for you and like being open about the pieces that, you know, maybe not that you're not proud of them, but maybe it's just something that is hard for you to show. And for me, I didn't really know how to lead in the space. Like I didn't really know like where I fit, I guess. So that was really confronting for me because I feel like my life is my life. I can lead that no problem. But getting into a space with other people, like you said, that are on so many different levels, I just had a hard time figuring out where I fit. And being vulnerable and opening up about that really, really illuminate so many pieces of my life that I didn't even see. So it was a really beautiful experience.
And I think for people who are watching this, a good, piece of information would be that being vulnerable is really having your inner child being witnessed,
Yeah.
right? In
Yeah.
the space that you are. And we really want, our inner child really wants somebody to witness us as this raw, authentic version of us without, a cape over us or a coat or blankets, or we really just want to be seen as we are.
Yeah.
But sometimes we don't want to be seen as we want to. I personally want to be seen for where I'm at, but I don't want to open up and let people see it. I just want people to figure it out on their own and come and be like, oh, I see you, I know what's going on. But and I think this goes to our next topic, is like admitting where you are. I sometimes resist admitting where I am because it's way too confronting, because I may be in resistance to where I am.
Absolutely.
I was so inspired by you both this week with vulnerability and leadership and willingness to be present in a new way. So much respect for you. Thank you, Ariel. I really appreciate it.
Ariel, you're so amazing. We love you so much.
Yes.
Admitting where we are can be challenging because it starts with like acceptance.
Yep.
And being like, I don't always have to be reaching forward for the next thing. Let's just sit in this space. What is this space teaching me right now?
Yeah.
Instead of resisting it, meeting yourself where you're at.
I find if it's really an uncomfortable place, like being in this mastermind and admitting to myself, I'm scared to show my true vulnerability. I'm scared to show up more in my business because I've never done this before. What does this mean? Am I going to be accepted? Are people going to like it? Are people going to listen? Are people going to follow? Is anybody going to care? So all those things are going on. And so for me to drop in to say, like, I'm scared of all this means I have to admit to myself that I'm actually scared, and I think it means I have to sit in the uncomfortableness of being scared.
Yeah.
And I was resisting, like you were saying, the resistance. I was resisting being scared because I didn't want to be scared. I think we can often resist where we are because we don't want to be where we are.
And I feel like I resonate with what you're saying, and I just thought about the fact that sometimes we think it's a weakness. Sometimes we
Yeah.
can think it's
Wow.
a weakness, and it's interesting because you commended me for leaning into that edge and being like, I want you to know that being vulnerable is actually really powerful. And that really landed for
Well,
me.
I remember reading your content after we had this moment of vulnerability, and the way that I perceived you was in a more powerful light. Like, I already know how powerful you are, but having you then reflect to me, like, my instant reframe, and this just naturally happened, was holy shit, that is so powerful to read, because you just dropped everything and you're like, this is me, I'm here right now, I have my heart open, and I'm gonna let you witness me. Whether you witness me or not, I'm witnessing myself.
That is super powerful.
And that,
How does
that
that make you? How does it make you feel? What would you tell yourself the next time you were up against that?
that I would need to hold myself, that I can hold myself
Yeah.
through it. And if somebody else isn't able to witness me or hold me, that's okay, because I'm still safe. And it's more important, I think, to witness ourselves where we are and be vulnerable with ourselves than it is for somebody else to. Even though our inner child really is craving that, us witnessing ourselves is witnessing our inner child, and that is enough.
Yeah.
That is a safe space. That in itself is a safe space, and that is enough.
And when we do that, when we meet the needs that we are constantly looking for others to fill, when we do that, then other people start to see that piece, and then they start to see you. They start to validate you. They start to hear you. All those things that you were searching for before within yourself that you are now giving you is reflected back to you by other people.
Yeah. Isn't it?
Like
It's
backwards.
so
It feels like
backwards.
that.
What is the word I'm looking for?
Yeah. And then
What's
it
the
all
word?
comes down to like our next piece, I feel like, and you might agree, with trusting yourself.
Yes.
Yeah.
That, I mean, definitely trusting myself has been, I think it's an ongoing process, and I wouldn't say it's something that I have ever been good at. It's like an active workout that I have to practice daily. And as we grow, I think we trust ourselves when it comes to certain things, and we practice the trust, we practice self-trust, and then as we start to grow, we're like, ooh, I don't know about this. This is new. This kind of seems like a bit wobbly, and then we maybe lose trust in a certain area, and and then I'm this is just personal, and then I'm back to, oh God, I don't trust myself in this area. But it's moving one foot in front of the other, a daily practice of, I'm working on my trust and working on trusting myself, and going towards the things that you want to do, and letting yourself know, like, I can rely on me. And I think hiding where you are, like, this all ties in. Hiding where you are, not accepting where you are, not being vulnerable, actually leads to not trusting yourself, because you're not being able to rely on yourself. And you have to be able to rely on yourself to program your brain and to be like, oh, I can trust myself.
One of
What about you? Like, how do you move through trusting
one of
yourself?
the biggest things that I've learned
Mm-hmm.
is the most profound thing, actually. One of them. I always say that. But our relationship relationships that we have are our biggest triggers because they illuminate the shadows, the unhealed pieces within ourselves. So I experienced many relationships where there was really no trust. I could not trust the person that I was with. They cheated on me. They were, just not kind, all the things. But I didn't realize it was because I didn't trust myself. Right. And I was like, so as I got, more advanced in my spiritual healing and that kind of thing, it really became about holding myself through places that are challenging and really allowing myself to listen to my needs and stop abandoning myself all the time.
Ooh, that's good.
That's a big one, right? And
Big
we
one.
do that all the time. It's like, I feel tired today, have a cup of coffee. Like, no, like it's all those little pieces, all those little things that are surfacing for a reason. So it's a constant practice, like you said, Morgan.
Yeah, abandoning your needs. This is a good topic. It's something that can be so simple as holding your pee when you have to go to the bathroom, right? And like we always talk about this. It's like, why do we do this? Well, because other stuff's more important. Actually, it's not.
Never.
It's not. But I think the society that we're in, especially in North America, it's go 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 go, and we've just adopted this way of being of like what we have to do is more important. Our chores are more important. Making money is more important. You know, getting a big house or your career. And yes, all of these things are important, but you can't actually build any of these things if you don't take care of yourself.
Yeah.
And this does tie into trusting yourself, because if you can remind yourself, oh, I can trust, you're just going to burn out if you don't. So if you can remind yourself by physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually taking care of yourself and not abandoning your needs, this will end up helping you trust yourself, because those parts of you, like your body, is like, oh, I can do all of these things today because I know I'm going to be fed. I know I'm going to be having a good sleep and exercise, and I'm going to deep breathe and meditate and do yoga or whatever, get out in nature. And your soul will it'll be easier to expand because you've taken care of those needs. And this allows you to trust yourself. And like you said, in relationships, they're very confronting.
Yeah, and also like when we're in a relationship and we expect someone else to meet our needs, and it's like a constant letdown that, well, I need this from you, I need this from you, and it's actually like, well, what parts of yourself are you ignoring and not meeting? Like that's where we can be like, oh, okay, like I've said that I'm gonna go for a nature walk and grounding for a while and I still haven't done it. Like bring yourself back to that space of you come first.
Yeah. And I think, speaking to that about relationships, that if you always want somebody else to fulfill your need and you're not going to do it, it'll always end up being this like push and pull of like blame, like you aren't doing this for me and blah blah blah, instead of it just being two people who are taking care of their own needs and meeting together, right? Rather than this like void of you're supposed to fill this void and I'm supposed to fill this void, but I don't want to fill this void because I can't even fill my own voids.
It's like a never-ending pit.
It is.
You get like a brief feeling of satisfaction and dopamine high when you get what you're looking for from the other person, and then it's gone instantly. It's not wholesome.
Right. Okay. So the next topic is how to handle when you feel like you are going backwards, but you are actually going forwards and growing.
Yeah.
As my dog wants to say hi. So what does that mean to you? What does it mean to feel like you're going backwards, but you're actually growing?
As we go through the spiritual journey, we go through lessons that are really hard, really uncomfortable, really confronting. And it feels like a big old contraction. That's what it feels like. And this is what I like. It's like a metaphor, okay? But this is how I see it. Like when you're in labor, okay? As soon as you start to feel that contraction coming, you just tense up and you're like, oh my God, here we go again. You don't want it because it hurts and it's uncomfortable. But if you can breathe into it and allow your body to stay open and expansive by doing like your practices, probably like meditation, grounding, journaling, getting in your feels, accepting where you are, getting vulnerable with yourself. It helps in that space to move through it more smoothly, but also you alchemize it more quickly than if you were to resist it, because you know it's coming. You can always feel it coming. You start to feel that contraction. You start to get cloudy, and maybe like you feel maybe a little depressed. You just feel off. And
Right. So
if
we're
we teach ourselves to stay open, right?
okay.
Instead of resist it and remember that on the other side is always good, it's a blessing usually, then it makes it not so hard.
So would the contraction be the feeling? I guess the contraction itself.
Yeah.
So the squeeze would be the same feeling. Oh, these two are brutal today. The contraction itself would be it would represent the feeling of going backwards because you're
Yeah.
like, here I am
Here we
again
go
with this pain,
again. Yeah.
and you're like, oh God, and you're going backwards and going backwards. But really, what's happening is it's like pressure to help you move
Yeah.
forwards, but you have to feel the pressure first, and everything gets really. I mean, I don't have children, so I can only make this up in my head, but I know what it feels like to feel like I'm going backwards, and this is exactly what it feels like. It's like, or like for people that haven't had children, this is how I would describe it: is like an arrow. You're like pulling it back, and you're like going backwards, but really it's propelling you to shoot forwards, but you just feel this crunch and this pull, and like, why is it hurting over here? We're going this way, but it hurts, or it's just backwards. And where this has come up this week for the both of us is again in this mastermind of feeling, again, being confronted by these other leaders who you could say through this 3D world that they're more ahead, but it's really all perspective. And where I came up with this feeling was that I felt like I was going backwards. I'm like, now I am more scared than I was a few months ago to show up. And why am I going backwards? And I wasn't going backwards. I was just feeling like I was, to become more vulnerable, to then shine my heart forward, to be able to share more and to do more and to show up more for my audience.
Yes, because sometimes the universe will give us a lesson read and be like, well, did you learn this time? Are you gonna choose differently this time? Are you gonna perpetuate the same cycle? And so that's our opportunity to be like, oh, I feel it. Here it comes. Am I gonna contract and close off, or am I gonna stay open and like move through it and actually be the different person this time?
And that's so hard.
It's
It's
hard.
so hard, especially when we get smacked in the face with the same lesson over and over and over again. And you think you've learned that lesson, and then it shows up again, and you think you're like, actually, you're like, oh, I'm doing good this time, and it just gets, I think it gets more severe as these lessons repeat, just make sure that you've learned your
Yeah,
lesson, right?
exactly.
What would be some advice you could offer on how to move through these lessons that keep happening and through this contraction of feeling like you're going backwards or learning a lesson again? Like, what would be helpful to tell people on how to move through a space like that where you feel like you're going backwards but you're actually going forwards? Like, how can we stay open?
I personally feel like not focusing so much on what you think a problem is and concentrate more on a solution is coming. What is actually being asked of me right now? What is this lesson that I'm learning again? And what tools do I have to help support me through this? So, like, do we have safe people that like to hold space for you that you can, bounce off of instead of doing it alone and contracting and hiding? Lean into the people that are willing to hold space for you. I feel like self-care is huge when you're going through those spaces because often you're more fatigued. You're really hard on yourself because you think, oh, I'm doing something wrong. Like, here I go again. So, like, self-care for sure. And try to just keep it light as best you can. Not get too much in your head about it. I think that would be my advice. What about you?
I think that if you are being presented with a lesson again and it feels like you're going backwards, the best advice would be, what am I missing? And not make it mean something
Yeah.
about you or not make it mean that you failed,
Yeah.
but just, what did I miss? And just looking at that as an opportunity for more growth. And instead of being like, I have failed miserably, here I go again. Because it's all about having that mindset and reframing how you look at things in order to move through them. Because if you look at it through the light of, I failed, it's gonna be a way more grueling lesson than if you look at it through, okay, maybe I've missed
Yeah.
something. I've been down this path before. Okay, I can do this. Give yourself some confidence there and remind yourself that you're human and that we don't always move through everything the first time. Like, there's juice to find in these lessons, and it doesn't always have to be that you're wrong or that you're bad, right? And so it may feel like we've gone backwards, but on the other side of, like we said, on the other side of going backwards, you're just getting propelled to go
And
forwards.
it's
So
giving you opportunity to choose differently.
exactly.
Like if I always stick to path A, we're gonna keep walking around in a circle. We're
Right.
gonna keep coming back to here. But what can I do different time than I did do last time? How can
Exactly.
I choose different?
I love that so much. Okay, so I think I'm going to ask you this last question because this is your forte and you're really strong in this. So, what does it mean, or how can we worry less? How can we worry less? And how do you move through worry?
Well, worry is a wasted emotion because it doesn't actually serve us for our highest good. I actually wrote a post about this slightly this morning.
Okay.
But so our mind can race and it can worry and it can spiral and it can go into these storylines that we begin to tell ourselves that are really not true. And I feel like the best way to cope with it is to prevent it from happening. First off. So, like, starting your day in meditation to drop into your heart space and have kind of like a neutral energy. And then what happens afterwards is a pivotal moment because it sets the tone for the day most often. So being super intentional about what foot you want to get out on, right? So this is where I would focus on like a gratitude list, or choosing one experience that you've walked through that makes you feel really, really good. This is where like overthinking is beneficial, when you overthink a good thought, because it gets you feeling that energy, right? And when you feel
Okay.
the energy, you start to attract like thoughts that match that frequency. So it's easier to stay in a positive mindset if you get out ahead of it first thing in the morning. But we don't always, that's not always the case. So depending on like how strong the whatever it is in your energy, there's like a couple different things that you can do. First, you can write a list of let it go, and you can write down all the crap that you have on your mind that is too
Like a
much.
mind dump?
Yeah, mind
Like just dump it all out.
dump it all out and then burn it. It's just a
Okay.
really good physical practice. My favorite tool is the like distraction, and this takes some like it's practice, because it's actually super challenging to stop your thoughts once they've started on their train. I just start talking out loud about neutral things. So I would just be like, "What's your name?" Answer my questions, Morgan.
Oh, I'm okay. Okay.
What's your name?
So wait. So you are, when you're having these thoughts, are you then, when you're having like these railroading, overthinking
Yep.
thoughts, then you are speaking out loud to
Yep.
neutralize the thought.
Yep.
So you want to be like, "What's my name is Morgan. I am like whatever." Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. My birthday.
Okay.
Blah blah blah. I have a dog and a cat. I love
Okay.
sun shines when I'm in the trees. I love the smell of the fresh air. I love the sound of the birds. And the
Okay.
longer you do this, the longer you do it. But really, all it takes is 17 seconds.
Okay.
And you focus on something neutral, it slows down the train.
Okay.
Right?
So are you iterating and narrating what's going on in the moment, or can it be anything?
It can be anything that doesn't have a lot of emotion to it.
Okay.
Right?
Okay, so like I'm doing the dishes, or I want to do the laundry or whatever.
Yeah, I'm doing the dishes and the water feels warm and it smells like lemon, and like just start talking about stuff that is in your surroundings, what you're doing presently. And it can literally shift the overthinking and worry completely.
Wow. I love that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
and
a really
17
cool.
seconds, that's all it takes. Because I am a major overthinker. Yeah. I am an obsessive thoughter, if that's even a word.
It is.
And like my thoughts becomes like, I have 4 placements in Scorpio. For anybody who understands astrology, I am like, my thoughts can get so intense. Yeah. And it just becomes this obsession thinking, especially if I don't understand something. I am like grueling and like, why is this happening? Blah 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 blah. And then I'm think future tripping. And then, well, maybe if I would have done this differently, then like this wouldn't be happening. And then if I would have done this, then this could potentially, and it's constant. And I have recently discovered a practice. I'm going to be actually sharing a free mini teaching coming up on Monday about codependency, and I'm going to be teaching about this practice that I've learned, is how to literally cut off this negative thought process and raise your vibration and like subconsciously change your reaction, like your physical reaction and mental thought process, I guess would be the best way to describe it, in the moment. Yeah. So that's what I've learned this week is, okay, sometimes I can't physically stop it. Yep. So I need to change it with I have to interrupt it.
Yeah.
And it has to be such a drastic interruption by getting so overly excited about something else that that's now what I'm focusing on.
Yes, absolutely.
And then you don't want to go back to these like awful feelings and this crazy mind tripping thoughts because you're like, oh, I feel really good here. And that has been a revolutionary practice that I've discovered, and it's that's the only one I got so far.
That's all you need. You
I
just
think
need one.
also meditation, and especially I find if I meditate before bed, I'm gonna wake. It's like it clears the slate. It's like you erase everything before bed. It can be 5 minutes. You guys don't have to go crazy. It doesn't have to be like this huge practice. It's just dropping in before bed will help you wake up refreshed, and it will wake up with a cleaner slate. It might not be 100% of not overthinking or worrying, but it'll help you drop back into your body. So if you can wake up and meditate for 5 minutes as well, you're doing great. You are going to have the best chance to win at the worry and overthinking.
Yeah, and like the more you practice awareness of what is even flowing through your mind, because you're gonna notice when your mind is calm how you feel, right? And so when your mind all of a sudden is not calm, you're gonna be like, oh crap, okay, so here we are. But like, how long are you gonna allow that train to pick up momentum and keep going? The quicker you catch it, the easier it is to hop on a different train.
Okay.
It's like getting out ahead of it. Yeah. Practice.
So why did you say the distraction is like a little bit of a harder practice to learn?
Depends how much momentum you have going on the train that you're riding at the moment.
Okay.
If you've got your thoughts are going, your body's feeling it, anxiety, fear, worry, your nervous system is now activated. It can be more challenging to shift it. It's not impossible. It's absolutely possible. It's just practicing, right? It's like, okay, this is not serving me right now. We are going to shift this and actually doing it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I definitely find, and I know I cannot be the only one, that when I'm in a major overthinking, anxiety-ridden, worry headspace, the last thing that I want to do is put more strain on my brain to then calm it down. Even though I know, because I've been in the self-help space for so long and I've worked on myself and I've just been in it for so long, I know that it's going to help me, and yet I'm still in resistance.
Yep, and that's why talking is so easy, because you can't think about something specific and talk about something different.
Okay.
Right? Like just, and another really good tool that I love is singing.
Yes.
I mean, I know that's not always like doable depending on where you are, but it's the same thing. Right?
Yeah.
It's just, you can sit there and you can stew on whatever it is that you're thinking, but that's actually taking more energy than it would be to do something beneficial.
I think this is just how I wouldn't say I'm an expert in this, but I think a really helpful tool as well is to ask yourself, why are you worrying about this topic? What is it? Why do you care so much? And getting really real with yourself on why you're overthinking. Why are you worried? And if it could be a relationship, it could be your job, your livelihood, it could be like a potential lover or your family, maybe somebody's not well. And like those things all correlate with being unsafe, and B, your inner child. And those goes hand in hand with feeling loved, like your love and feeling safe. So I think we probably worry all the time because we're worried we're not going to we're not going to feel safe in some manner. And getting really clear with yourself on that I think could be beneficial, just to get really real with yourself. Like we said before, being vulnerable and open. Like, what is it? What is it that it is? And maybe giving yourself a little bit of self-acceptance there instead of beating yourself up for the worry. Understand why you're worrying.
Yeah, and also you can ask yourself a couple questions like, what is the truth here?
Yeah.
Is
the
story that I'm telling myself actually true, or is it a made story that I'm thinking could happen?
I feel like you've directed that right into my soul.
That's a really big one, though.
Yeah, it is.
Our mind will make crap up that isn't even real.
Yeah.
Then all of a sudden we're having this argument with this imaginary person in our mind, and we're getting pissed off, but in reality it hasn't even actually happened. So is it true? What
is true?
And then
what is true right now? Like laying out the facts. And I think sometimes it can be hard. I know that sounds so silly, but it can be hard to differentiate what the facts are to what you're tripping about, because you've lost sight of what actually is, or maybe you're in resistance to what is, and that is why you're tripping over it. You're future tripping.
And then the other piece I find is a really helpful question is, do I have control over this? Is the situation in my control?
We have landed. This is a good topic.
If it is, what can I do to support myself right now? If it
is in your control,
what can I do to support myself or the situation right now? Maybe you need to have a conversation with somebody. Get confronting, getting vulnerable. Like, let's lay this out on the table. If it's not in your control, then is overthinking or worrying about it serving me? Is it getting me anywhere?
That's so good.
Most often it's not.
Most often it's not. And I think this also ties into trusting yourself, right? Being able to understand, is it in my control or is it not? If it is, what can I do about it? Then you do something about it, and that reminds your inner child, yourself, your body, your soul, I can trust myself now because I did something about it. If it's not in your control, reminding yourself it's not in your control, what can I do? I have to surrender. What are the facts? And that reminds yourself that you can trust yourself because you're doing everything in your power, and to sort of lean in by leaning back.
Yes.
And that will teach you how to trust yourself, because you're like, hey, I leaned back and I allowed whatever was meant to happen, and I didn't let my mind kill itself while this is all going on.
And I actually feel really good right now.
And I feel really good.
Funny how that works. Yeah.
I love this, Crystal, so much. So is there anything else that you want to talk about?
Not specifically.
So I think again, the question we can ask at the very end, like we did last time, is if you have a different answer today. I feel like my answer is going to be the same, but what does it mean to you to have an empowered heart?
This week it is very different from last week.
Okay.
Last week I said confidence.
Mm-hmm.
And this week I would say vulnerability. Because that was really, really powerful for me. Like, I am in a different level of power now. And I feel empowered to show the world who I am and not be scared of it. So, What about you?
I think for me, I think what I said last week was to feel rooted in my shoes, to feel grounded, and then I can't remember what I said now, but what I can say is that self-trust, and that is building, and that has definitely built from last week due to everything that we have moved through, and that I consciously moved through this week, and reminding myself through my actions and my non-actions actions that I can trust myself. And that, I mean, that's not a bunch of just like bullshit that I've made up. Like it's non non-action is as important as action sometimes. Being able to surrender and understand, just like you said, like it not being in your control. And what does that mean? That means you got to take your foot off the pedal and just like let the universe do its thing. Like you said something so beautiful this week. You said the universe knows what you want. How did you say it? The universe knows what you want. Let it do its thing. Was that? I think you said. And it just means like don't like dig your hands. You don't need to have your hands like so involved in like controlling everything, controlling every step. You know, we don't control our breath. Our breath pours through us. Like let your heart beat. Be along for the ride. You don't need to be, I am breathing right now. You know, like universe, do your thing. No, the universe is doing its thing. You're just here. Do your best to just
feel good.
To feel good. Yeah.
Your best to feel good. Keep control over your mind. That's all you need to keep control over. Your mind, your body.
Stay present, stay grounded, because really, probably at the end of the day, nothing actually is really in our control. Really, at the end of the day. I mean, you may think it is like, yes, I'm getting dressed, I'm brushing my teeth, like I'm doing these things, but when it comes to these bigger pieces in life, we're just kind of along for the ride. We're just doing our best. So control what you can, which is like you said, how you feel.
Yeah, so true. Let it go.
This has been wonderful, Crystal. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And we will see you guys next week, probably at the same time.
Yep.
And we will be letting you guys know what next week is about. I don't think we have it fully written out yet, but we will let you know. So thank you so much for joining us.
Have a great day.
You too.